Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rural Press Club of Queensland. It's great to see you all here. My name is James Nason. I'm a journalist with Beef Central and I'm the president of the club. We begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and we extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. So thanks so much for joining us, and a very warm welcome to our guest of honour today, the Honourable Stephen Miles, Premier of Queensland. Really appreciate you accepting your invitation to speak today, Premier. Obviously a lot to talk about. 93 days until Queenslanders go to the polls to decide who will govern the state for the next 4-year term. Obviously a lot can happen in 3 years. Historically, Queensland elections have had a habit of being decided very late in the process. You might notice on your tables there's an election brief that was prepared for this election by the SAS group, and welcome to the SAS group and Malcolm Cole and everyone from the team today. I thought the brief, it was very interesting to read. It makes the point that there's an adage that's been proven correct in Queensland elections time and time again, and that is Queensland tends to swing late and swing hard. It notes that Queensland elections have had a pattern of electoral tidal waves tending to form or dissipate very late in the political process, and very late can often mean in the last 48 hours of a 3 or 4 year parliamentary term. So who knows what lies ahead? Election may well come down the wire. So keep it, it's an important adage to keep in mind. Queensland tends to swing late and swing hard. That sounds like some of the great Queensland State of Origin performances over the years as well. I thought also interesting to note in the SAS group brief, it identifies 24 seats in this election as seats to watch. And if you run through those seats, almost half of those 24 seats are actually outside the greater Brisbane area, which really says something about the important role that voters from rural and regional Queensland will play in this election. So warm welcome, Premier. Look forward to hearing from you soon. And our committee member Mark Phelps from Queensland Country Life will be back up a little later to introduce the Premier.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to see so many people here today at the Rural Press Club. I'm Mark Phelps from Queensland Country Life, a committee member on the club. But we're here today to hear Premier Stephen Miles, and thank you and welcome for coming, Stephen. And it's certainly a rare treat and a wonderful opportunity to have the Premier to address the Rural Press of Queensland. And I think it's fair to say that Dr Miles has at least all his adult life been directly involved in politics. Brisbane born and bred and a Broncos fan, although living so close to Redcliffe, it might be tricky. Our 40th Premier was educated at Peachtree State School, later attended St Paul's School at Bald Hills, and then the University of Queensland. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree and completed a PhD on the trade union movement, hence the doctor. In his earlier days, Dr Miles held a variety of roles, including being the Managing Director of Reveal Strategy, Communication Director at the United Voice Union, a Senior Policy Advisor for the Queensland Government, and a Director of the Queensland Public Sector Union. Dr Miles first entered Parliament in 2015, winning the seat of Mount Coot for the Australian Labor Party from the LNP. Following a redistribution, Dr Miles chose to contest the outer metropolitan seat of Rome on Brisbane's north side in 2017, which takes in suburbs including Watford, Kalina, Dagenham and Mandel Hill, where he and his wife ended down in their 3 children reside. During his stellar career in politics, Dr Miles' ministerial responsibilities have covered a wide range of portfolios, including health, regional development, manufacturing infrastructure, water, local government, Olympics, so very well versed. The now 47-year-old was named Deputy Premier in 2020 and has been the Premier since December 16 last year, following the retirement of Anastasia Palaszczuk. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stephen Miles, a man not only known for his political skills and his commitment to physical fitness, but also, as the ALP's latest slogan tells us, doing what matters, including kindly addressing the Royal Press Club. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Mark, for that detailed introduction. I think it's the first time Queensland Country Life has ever said anything I've done was stellar, and so I'm claiming it. It will just be, in inverted commas, stellar Queensland Country Life. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're gathered on and pay my respects to their elders, and also acknowledge any First Nations people here with us today. Thanks so much to the Rural Press Club for inviting me to address you today, and thanks so much to all of you for coming along. I really do appreciate having so many of you here. I've just been told that I'm the first Premier to address the Rural Press Club since Anablai in 2007, which I'm choosing to interpret means that it was the right decision to say yes, rather than following the course of history. I've been Premier for about 7 months now, and during that time I've spent every day listening to Queenslanders and doing what matters to them. And as I travel across the state, Queenslanders tell me about the cost of living pressures they're facing. I've listened, and that's why we have taken immediate action to try and alleviate the pressures Queensland families are dealing with at the kitchen table. But good governments don't just respond to immediate pressures. They also focus on the future, which is why I have worked hard every day to set up our state's economic future and our children's future. In Queensland, we are creating more jobs with the strongest jobs growth in our state's history. Queenslanders pay lower taxes and share lower debt than other parts of the country. We also export more goods than from New South Wales and Victoria combined. Queensland's resources, agriculture and renewables industries are stronger and they are smarter too. Our primary industries make an enormous contribution. Looking ahead, the total value of Queensland's primary industry commodities for 2024-25 is forecast to be $23.6 billion. That would be the second highest value on record and 3.4% above the average of the past 5 financial years. Agriculture supports the entire food supply chain with an estimated value of $33.9 billion last financial year. Over the same period, 70,600 Queenslanders were directly employed in agriculture, forestry or fisheries. And Queensland agriculture exports were valued at $13.2 billion in the year to May 2024, an increase of 6.7%. So why then, when Queensland is such an agricultural powerhouse, have the big supermarkets thought that they could get away with treating our farmers so shamefully? Everywhere I go, Queenslanders have been telling me that they are paying more for groceries compared to a couple of years ago. And I certainly know my weekly shop has gone up. And the numbers back that up. Queenslanders' spending on food rose 15.2% in 2023. But farmers were not receiving greater returns in kind. Farmers I've met, like Trevor and Wendy near Bundaberg. Trevor told me he had to leave his tomato crop on the vine last year because the price he was offered by the supermarkets was so low he would have made a loss on it. We needed greater scrutiny. That's why one of my first acts as Premier was to announce that we would hold a parliamentary inquiry to scrutinise supermarket pricing. And I want to thank the Queensland fruit and vegetable growers, part of QFF, for their strong support through the supermarket inquiry. We listened and are rolling out our Geared Up Growers pilot project in partnership with Queensland fruit and vegetable growers. This includes launching retail and farm grade price monitoring on a range of essential goods and rolling out 21 training workshops across Queensland's major growing regions. The training in negotiating tactics is underway in Bundaberg this week, Mareeba and Innisfail next week, followed by Lockyer Valley, Scenic Rim, Central Queensland, Eyre, Gympie and Gayndah. We're also delivering an increase to the Remote Communities Freight Assistance Scheme from 5.2% to 20% starting later this year. We're also taking 20% off rego and this 20% discount includes tractors and utes. I look forward to building upon this action in coming weeks, and I think it's disappointing the LNP continues to campaign against these actions as recently as this week. Many of you know my favourite event of the year is Beef Australia. Nothing beats Beef Week. I know Bryce is here, and can I congratulate him and his team again on an incredible event this year. That's why I doubled the state government funding to $4.5 million to support Beef 2027, and I can tell you I'm already in training for it, including with that giant hunk of steak they gave me just now. As a former health minister, I know the importance of a strong health system. With more than a third of Queenslanders living in rural and remote parts of our state, I know it can be challenging to ensure all Queenslanders receive great care as close to home as possible. Rural healthcare is not just about providing medical services, it is about building communities. The local doctor is often a trusted advisor, a friend, and a key member of the community. From the bustling clinics in regional towns to the lone practitioners in our most remote outspots, the rural health workforce does a fantastic job at looking after Queenslanders. My first budget as Premier included significant funding to attract and retain doctors to regional Queensland, to incentivise trainees to undertake GP training, GP registrars and rural generalist trainees will receive a $40,000 boost to help grow the workforce. And when we attract rural doctors, we want to do everything we can to keep them. All current medical practitioners with private practice will receive a retention allowance, equivalent to $30,000 over 18 months. We're also expanding rural maternity services, including expanding the midwifery group practice service and building and replacing aged health infrastructure across rural and remote Queensland. For example, a new modern purpose-built multi-purpose health service at Blackwater is on track for completion this year. 48 modules are now on site after being transported to Blackwater on trucks from Hutchinson's Builders Yatla construction yards. As I said earlier, it's the job of a good government to set up our state for the future. Climate change is of course impacting us beyond the weather. Our economy is changing because of it, and Queensland is not alone. The global market is changing. Australian consumers, our global trading partners, and business investors are demanding that what we sell them has been produced using renewable energy. Queensland risks losing investment, trade opportunities, and rural and regional jobs and industries if we don't adapt to deliver what the world wants. A recent parliamentary inquiry reported the top risks for our producers are intensifying disasters and biosecurity threats. And without action, farm profits could fall by a third or even up to a half, as the inquiry heard from ABARES. This is a future we can avoid. Deloitte Access Economics modelling identified that if we fail to meet our emissions reduction targets, Queensland will miss out on 145,000 more jobs and $430 billion in economic opportunity. Over 85% of those jobs are expected to be in regional Queensland. It's why I'm determined to work with industries, business and communities across the state to ensure Queensland does not fall behind. In April this year, our state surpassed its 2030 emissions reduction target of 30%, 6 years ahead of schedule. The same month, we passed laws which enshrined 2 more targets, including 75% emissions reduction by 2035 and net zero emissions by 2050. But we need a credible plan to achieve them. That plan is our Energy and Jobs Plan. It maps out the path Queensland needs to take to meet our targets. This year's budget includes a record $26 billion investment, the largest investment in income-earning, publicly owned renewable energy assets in Australia. The call from advocates for coexistence is simple but powerful. That locals should benefit from developments in their communities like wind and solar generation. And we understand. We understand the importance of grassroots engagement and local voices being heard in the development of generation and storage projects. We passed legislation earlier this year establishing Coexistence Queensland. Our nation-leading code for renewable projects will further strengthen engagement. And we're investing $9 million into local energy partnerships, which has already seen partnerships form with agriculture, environmental and community peak bodies to improve practices. We're committed to ensuring local communities see immediate benefits and long-lasting legacy, including better roads, improved services, and good quality. Today I can also announce a $76 million investment to support the industries of the future and job-generating regions of Queensland. The regional economic strategies launched today will support 59 jobs-generating state government and council-led projects in 4 regional areas. The strategies have been co-designed with regional communities to guide economic diversification and energy transformation projects. It includes $22 million for 19 projects in northwest Queensland, $20.03 million for 18 projects in the Darling Downs, southwest and south Burnett region, $17.7 million for 14 projects in central Queensland, and $16 million for 8 projects in the greater Whitsunday region. These projects will support communities to seize industry development opportunities presented by our plan for Queensland's future. It backs the regions to help them to strengthen supply chains, create jobs, diversify, and support decarbonisation. Queensland's farm and forest industries will play a big part in reaching the state's 2050 net zero emissions target. The Low Emissions Agriculture Roadmap, launched with AgForce and the Queensland Farmers Federation, charts a clear pathway for Queensland to achieve even cleaner and greener food and fibre production. Our trading partners and supply chains are demanding more transparency on emissions reduction and offsets, and I know our state takes its environmental and social responsibility seriously. That is also how we can take advantage of new markets in carbon, biodiversity, and land restoration. Last month, I joined the Treasurer and timber workers in Maryborough to reveal our landmark 30-year framework for a sustainable timber industry. Backed by $200 million, this new framework will support the future of the industry, including securing timber jobs and timber supply. This includes supporting best practice forest management on private land, including an extension program with landholders. I want to thank Mick Stevens for joining me in Maryborough and working to implement this investment in all of our futures. The Great Artesian Basin is incredible, holding as much as 65 million litres of water. You would need 55 Wivenhoe dams to hold as much. The Great Artesian Basin is vital to towns, farms, feedlots, and the environment. As many as 180,000 people depend on its water for life, cultural connection, and livelihoods. The federal LNP wanted to inject waste carbon dioxide into it. I always thought that injecting carbon dioxide into the Great Artesian Basin was a bad idea. I said as much, and I wasn't alone. The Environment Department said the project would cause irreversible change to groundwater quality. Many of you in this room deserve credit for your bravery in standing against that plan. It underlined that just because the LNP supports something, it does not mean that it is good for regional Queensland. I would like to thank you for trusting me with your concerns. In particular, I acknowledge Joe Shepherd, Head of QFF, for uniting the broad coalition of farmers, conservationists and mayors. Thanks also to Sean Rudnidge, Alison Smith, Mike Gurin, and Nev Ferrier and Lauren Springborg for sharing the concerns of their communities with me. That's why I banned greenhouse gas injection and enhanced petroleum recovery in the entirety of Queensland's Great Artesian Basin. We demonstrated then that water security is an incredibly important contributor to Queensland's prosperity. Just like we must seize the opportunity to secure our renewable energy future, we also need to ensure Queensland's future water security. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about nuclear energy. And again, just like on the GAD, there has been an assumption by some that because the LNP is supporting something, then it must be good for rural Queensland. That assumption is again wrong. It is well established that nuclear is far more expensive than pumped hydro. We know it will take far too long to be delivered in time to meet our emissions targets. That's not my opinion, that's the independent expert advice of the CSIRO. There has also been some discussion about leaving future generations to manage dangerous radioactive nuclear waste forever. But an important part of this discussion that's been missing is the impact nuclear energy would have on our water security and agricultural land. Tarong Power Station is one of the LNP's confirmed nuclear sites, located in a prime agricultural region next door to the Great Artesian Basin. Boondooma Dam currently supplies agricultural producers and the Tarong Power Station. Tarong Power Station is also reliant on Wivenhoe Dam during drought periods. So much so that in 2007, the Queensland Government had to cut generation at the Tarong Power Station to save drinking water for people. Nuclear power plants use large amounts of water, 20 to 80% more than coal-fired plants. And it is far more complicated to shut down a 1 gigawatt nuclear reactor that still needs water for cooling, compared with a 350 megawatt coal-fired power station. As recently as 2021, Wivenhoe Dam levels dropped to 36%. If a similar drought was to occur, not even as bad as the Millennium Drought, a nuclear power station at Tarong could use up more than 5% of the total dam capacity every year. We would be left having to choose between access to drinking water, irrigation, or power. Just like on the Great Artesian Basin, I'm also concerned about the forever impacts on our state, should anything go seriously wrong, as it has in other parts of the world. Advice of the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission is that the potential ingestion zone for radioactive materials in agriculture is 80 kilometres. There are about 2,400 farms within 80 kilometres of Tarong Power Station. As highlighted in a research paper prepared by the Department of Premier and Cabinet, agriculture, food industry and agri-food consumption were amongst the worst affected areas from the Fukushima nuclear accident. Japan's government invested billions in removing contaminated material, with farmers having to remove topsoil and in some instances shave bark off trees. Impacts from long-term import restrictions were significant. 14 countries and regions imposed restrictions on Japanese food until 2022. The EU only lifted restrictions last year, and China's ban on seafood products is still in place. Just imagine if that happened here. I don't want Queensland to take that risk. The LNP's nuclear plan is as big a threat to land and water that agriculture relies on as their plan to use the Great Artesian Basin to store waste CO2 was. If you haven't yet noticed, it's an election year here in Queensland, which means you'll be hearing and seeing a lot of me and a lot of the other side as well. The day I was sworn in as Premier, I said I would work hard every single day to do what matters for Queensland. And I think, at least I hope, you can see that's exactly what I've been doing. I've listened to Queenslanders and delivered cost of living action to help people right now. But I also have a plan for the future that guarantees Queensland's prosperity for generations. All of that progress and future investment is now at risk if we change course. I want to work with all of you to deliver on what matters for Queensland. I will listen to Queenslanders, I will make plans based on what I hear, and then I will get on with delivering what matters to you. Thank you.